Welcome back, everybody, to We Are TPM with myself, Kyle Teixeira, and across from me, John Teixeira.
Hola.
Today, we are going to be going back into our series of the 9 common concerns when thinking of renting your home. And today's concern is, what are we talking about today, John?
Well, we try to do this based on what goes through people's minds when somebody brings up the idea of renting their homes, right? So this one is titled, Why Would I Go Through the Hassle?
Why would I go through the hassle? So as we talk about this, if you have any questions or you want to know why you'd go through the hassle or want to contact us, shoot us an email at showmethemoney@wearetpm or give us a ring at 817-818-9039. All right, let's get into it. Why would I go through the hassle of renting my home?
Hey, so why would it go through the hassle? So there's an obvious reason, but first, what's the hassles, right? We've done part of this series is talking about the hassles themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why do we deal with tenants and toilets? What if somebody trashes my house? How do I find a great tenant? Actually, we're going to be doing that one coming up here. And so those are the hassles, right? So we want to make sure that people understand we're going to address what the hassles are, but why would I go through those hassles? And the simple answer, we'll dive into it more, but the simple answer is to build wealth.
Yeah, to build wealth. I mean, money grows on trees, right? No, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
You have to do things, and you usually have to put effort into, making money, building wealth for yourself. And that's why you would go through the hassle. For one, is the hassle is there, and it's worth it, and people do it because they build wealth for themselves. It's the biggest wealth creation tool that's ever existed. So.
It's easy and passive too, right? Like once you have the home, and that's the biggest obstacle, right? So when you're talking about hassles, why would it go through the hassle? You already went through the hassle to acquire the home, and that's probably the biggest of all the hassles, right? You had to come up with a down payment. You had to go to a closing table. You had to search for a home. You had to do all these things. Now you are in possession of this home. Why not go through the hassle?
Yeah. I mean, because you're going to go through it. I mean, you got to make a decision one way or the other. In most cases, are you selling it or are you renting it, right? Yep. Unless you're just staying there. But yeah, that's there's a hassle on either side. Why you would go through to do renting is you could look at it as less of a hassle. If you do it right, if you get somebody you trust to manage it, get good tenants in there, all those things we've talked about. It's lucrative, helps you cash flow. But there's a lot of points here. We've talked about how that cash flow can actually add to your DTI for your purchase of your next home. There's a good reason.
That's right.
Why would I look at it as a hassle is probably a better question.
That's right. But that is one of the things a lot of people are going to run through their head. Oh, why would I go through the hassle? And that's the whole idea of this series, to kind of help people understand or get rid of those objections to doing it, right? And you make a great point, like turning that around to, well, why should I go through the hassle, right? Like, what are the good reasons? It's not just building wealth, but am I going to buy something down the road? I might actually be helping my qualification down the road. So to dive into that a little bit more, and we've done a whole thing on this one, right? A whole podcast on this one, but just to kind of summarize it, if I have a home that costs me $1,000 a month, mortgage, taxes, and insurance, and I rent it for $1,500 a month, I get 75% of $500. There's a $500 cash flow, we call it, right? Every month that goes toward the DTI formula that a mortgage company uses. DTI standing for debt to income, right? So they're able to use 75% of that cash flow, that positive cash flow toward that. So now I've got, in that instance, I got $350 a month added to my DTI formula that will allow me to buy more house. Yeah. That's what you meant by that, right?
It's an added income. Instead of a mortgage deducting from your income and qualifications, the cash flow adds on to it, actually. Everything that exceeds that cost is added on to your monthly income. So, and, why would I go through the hassle is a question I heard and had an experience with in 2019, right? And I was talking to one of our clients about this yesterday. They really wished they went through the hassle because the other reason is appreciation, right? So we talk about that a lot. It's the wealth building piece of owning real estate. It's not always that in 2 years things go up, 50%, but sometimes they do.
Well,
The
let's talk
point
about
is you don't know.
Yeah, let's
right?
talk about appreciation a little bit more. Let's dive into it a little bit more. What is appreciation? Summarize that for me.
Appreciation is the increasing value of something, right, over time. For example, I bought a house for $100,000. I owe 80 on it, and I bought that a year ago, and today it's worth 150. So it appreciated 50 grand.
Right.
Right.
It appreciated 50 grand, and now you have $70,000 in equity. Perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And that's money that you can't go to an ATM machine for that money, but you could sell it, you could refinance it. There's ways that you could get that money out. That's wealth for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you will realize that wealth the day that you sell it for fair market value.
Well, what I've told people before, especially if you have a lot of equity and you're asking yourself this question, why would I go through the hassle? Well, say you have like 80% equity in your house and you want to pull that out and you think it'd just be easier to sell it rather than rent it. It's not always the most accurate consideration, because you can pull up to 80% out, like in a refinance, and then rent it out. So you'd still get some cash flow. You pulled that difference between the 20% you owe and the 80% you can take out. So you get that money in your pocket. And the flip side, when you sell it, what people don't consider is when you sell it, you are paying costs. You're paying closing costs, you're paying real estate costs, and those can get close to 10% of, so you're really leaving 10%. I wouldn't call it leaving it on the table, but there's a difference of 10% that you're not claiming out of that investment, to keep it and let it appreciate and continue to grow wealth for you.
Beautiful. That's exactly. I love the way you articulated all that. So also, I'm sitting here thinking about the tree of wealth that we talk about all the time, right? And the other thing that you do when you sell that home is you stop the growth of that tree. So we've created this. Oh my gosh, the word is escaping me. But we've created this scenario where when you build wealth with property, it's like a tree, like growing a tree, right? Goes from seed to a big giant 50-foot tree, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it continues to grow for as long as you water it, fertilize it, and continue to allow that tree to grow. And when you sell it, you're basically cutting it off at the roots and stopping that growth, right?
Yeah, where kind of what we're talking about is picking off all the seeds and planting them somewhere else. If you were to pull money out of it and go invest it other places, that tree's still growing. You picking the seeds off didn't kill the tree.
You're taking seedlings off of it and go planting it somewhere else, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're taking equity out of that tree or out of that home to go buy another home. We've kind of got sidetracked a little bit from our topic, but it's why would I go through the hassle? Well, that's one good reason, because if you've got a bunch of equity in your home, use that equity so that you could build wealth more than just one time with more than just one property, right? Mm-hmm. I know Steve behind the mic over there, he's got a whole bunch of equity in his house. And if he took that equity and pulled it out and went and bought 2 or 3 more houses, what has happened with him in his house would happen 2 or 3 times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just the same thing, same tree. Now he's got a forest we keep talking about. I love our analogy.
The forest of wealth.
I love our analogies. But anyways, so that's, I like to get Steve involved anytime I can, because he just sits back there quietly working.
So why else would we go through the hassle? I mean, that's pretty much all the reasons because it's beneficial to you, your family, and your wealth. I mean, that's really
That's it. So I presented an example of $1,000 break-even point and $1,500 rent. And the way rents are going up, your break-even point shouldn't change too much. It'll go up a little bit because of taxes and insurance, but for the most part, the amount of money it costs you to own that home shouldn't change too much year over year. But rental rates are just going through the roof every single year. They're going up 10 to 20%. Mm-hmm. I don't anticipate that's going to continue. It'll come back to a normal, 5% maybe every year is kind of normal, right? But right now they're going up. I'm seeing incredible increases in rental rates. So cash flow is another reason, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's not one of the biggest reasons, and it's not why you and I do this. And we actually try to keep people from focusing so much on cash flow, but it is still a reason to do it, right? Not just we talked about using that cash flow for DTI, but I don't know, what if you just stick it into a savings account so that you could buy that next property?
I like it. And then the last reason that comes to mind, honestly, is what if you don't have any equity? What if you're at a high cost of value? Why would you go through the hassle? Because your alternative is selling it at a loss or selling it break even, any of that stuff. Where if you rent it, you're now renting it out, making a little bit of money on cash flow and waiting for that appreciation to, grow and get you to a point where you can make a realistic decision between the two options if you want to. A lot of people don't look at it like that, where there's scenarios where your best option's renting, right? Especially what if you bought that house 6 months ago and the value hasn't changed much? Well, it's going to cost you more than, closing costs, everything else I mentioned. There's going to be a cost to getting out of that, where, there always will be a cost to getting out of it, but you could not hit that cost right now. Renting it out and making cash flows is a net profit. So
I call those forced landlords. We don't have a lot of those right now, but we have. That's how my business started in 2008, was with a whole book of forced landlords that came to me and said, I want to sell my house because I want to move to Arizona. And we looked at the value of their home and like, okay, well, how much money do you have to bring to the table? Because in order to sell your house, you're going to need $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. I had between 2008 and 2010, I probably had a dozen people bring thousands or tens of thousands of dollars to the table in order to sell their home. Well, fathom that.
Yeah.
In the current market that we're in, it's incredible to think about that.
Yeah, but you got to remember, markets go through flows and cycles, right? So, that's a big reason. It really is, because the alternative is like what we said earlier about your DTI, is if you rent it out and that rent beats cost or matches cost, whatever. Now you can go buy your home in Arizona and not have that house weighing against your debt to income ratio.
Right. Well, we're living proof that that's an alternative for people, even if that's forced on them, right? Right. They didn't have any other choice. It was like, okay, either I rent this out, I let you rent this out, manage it for me while I'm in Arizona, or I take a huge loss and I come to the table with $18,000. That's a pretty easy decision for most people.
Well, what if they would have taken that $18,000 hit in 08? A lot of those forced landlords still have them today.
They do.
Pretty sure that's a net profit from 2008 to now. So
I can think of 2 or 3 that are in our portfolio that we still have, that were some of our very first ones.
They're very thankful that they chose that option, right? That they took on the hassle. So
most of them ended up selling. Most of them ended up selling it at a really good profit. They waited. They had great equity. They're like, okay, let's sell it, right? Because they never intended to be landlords. I get it.
But they made money in the interim.
They made money by doing it. Yeah. So I hope this is helpful. Why would I go through the hassle? Are there any other reasons to go through the hassle? We talked about wealth building, cash flow, improving your DTI. We got anything else?
I think we killed the main one, so I think we'll leave it there. But I always ask yourself, if you're asking yourself, why would I go through the hassle? Make sure you know what the hassle is, or what the alternative hassle is. That's a great point. Right? So
that's a great point. What is the hassle that you're referring to? Why would I go through the hassle? And you know what? I don't want to discount the fact, Kyle, that there are great reasons to still say, no, I need to sell my house, right?
Of
There's
course.
Great reasons not to rent your house, especially if you're not going to have somebody do it for you. If you're not going to have somebody really good do it for you, now you've just created a whole bunch of other reasons why you shouldn't do it. But
you're creating a bigger hassle there.
Yeah, now you're going to feel the hassles that we're talking about. But sometimes people need that equity and they can't get out any other way, right? Sometimes I just ran into a scenario where we were going to rent a house and the homeowner told me, I showed up at the door, nope, we're selling it. And come to find out, the reason why is we got a crazy neighbor next door. And she's worried about having a rental property with a crazy neighbor next door. She lives there. She knows how crazy this neighbor is. And she knows that crazy neighbor's not going away. Okay. Can't choose your neighbors. Can't choose your location. I get it. That's a great
And you know the level of crazy. I don't. So
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, I think we killed this topic, Kyle. I look forward to talking about next week. Why don't we try to we talked about how to find a great tenant, and I think that was on our list for the next one. No.
We'll figure it out. But
okay.
Right. Tune in next week to find out. If you have any questions, give us a call, 817-818-9039. And everybody have a great week. Kyle Teixeira, I'm out.
We are TPM.
We are TPM.
Out.